Hi, Internet. It's Blizzard Day here in Boston, so it seemed like a good time to stay home and catch up on the videos. There's certainly a lot to catch up on, although I'm not going to do too much talking about my current progress. The purpose of this video is to fill in some of the answer of why the heck would somebody want to or seek to change the methodology and focus of their common mode of thinking um, by way of explaining the first experience that I had with this way of thinking. I introduced the word samadhi last time, so I'm just going to use it this time um, to describe that event. So, I wanted to start with a quick update. I've been making a lot of what I'm going to call not progress lately. It's not progress. It's got a hyphen. It's not progress, or one word with an extra capital if you prefer the internet notation. It's not progress, which is not the same as not making any progress. It is making progress by failing to make progress. It has been, in seeking this mode of thinking, it has been written in the past that to fail is to succeed, because the realization that you are failing is in fact success. And that sounds horrendously annoying, and it makes a lot more sense when you think of it in terms of the 2D and 3D graphing, and I'm just starting to refer to it as a lot. Realizing that you're in 2D, realizing that, hey, this isn't that thing, this isn't the new method of thinking, this isn't the way that I want to learn to think. In order to make that realization that you're in 2D, you have to flip into 3D a bit. You can't see that things are flat. Has anybody ever read Flatland? Flatland is awesome. You can't see that things are flat when you're in 2D. It just looks normal to you. In order to realize that you're in 2D, you have to slip into 3D a little bit. You have to separate yourself from your thoughts to realize what your thoughts are doing. And so I've been having a lot of that lately, and that is a very challenging phase to be in because it feels like a constant string of failure. It feels like you're just failing and failing and failing, and every time you turn around, you're like, oh my god. And the word failure is loaded, and especially as I get farther along with this, I'm going to make a concerted effort to avoid normative and judgmental terms. But in this case, I'm going to use failure because there is actually I won't say objective, but a real negativity present in the old mode of thinking. That is part of the reason that I am seeking to make the 3D mode of thinking my norm, for me at least, and I would venture to say for many people, and I suspect once I get really good at this, I will just go ahead and say for all people, but for me at least, the old mode of thinking, like when my mind is carried away, it does negative things, primarily to me, but by doing negative things to me, it has negative impacts on other people as well, and that is my cross, and I mean that in the sense of a burden that will eventually free me. I'm very grateful in a God, this sucks and I hate it, but I'm glad that it's there kind of way, because it is what motivates me to find better ways to think. And I have, over the course of my life, found many tweaks. And I really think that this, I mean, that's why I'm doing this. I think that this is more than a tweak. This is a fix. This is a new method. This is a 180-degree change. And so anyway, let me talk about why I know this exists as a mode of thinking, and also where my faith, to the extent that I am willing to hack my brain and undergo a really difficult period in order to get the hang of this, comes from. I mean, when someone decides, hey, I'm going to learn to, fast, or I'm going to walk across the country, or I'm going to train up for a huge marathon, somebody asks them, why? Why do you want to do this? So here's why. I have a long history with philosophy. Everyone has one or more superpowers. They often don't make sense. Philosophy is one of mine. I was described as a little philosopher when I was barely in grade school. I've always thought that way, and so I started reading philosophy very early, and I started reading. I developed a fascination for Eastern and what we would call Eastern religious philosophy, although those terms in the Western sense don't really encompass what we're talking about. But I developed a fascination with reading about Taoism and the various flavors of Buddhism and the concept of enlightenment stuff pretty early on. Um, and I also started learning to meditate in my 20s. Um, and I was doing a bunch with this anyway. Actually, wow, I guess I was still a teenager when I started with meditation. But I had all these concepts floating around in my head. I had enough knowledge that, you know, there was this strange clarity and this like elevated frame of mind that people had written about it for thousands of years, and for thousands of years the people that were able to attain it were seen as being really having gotten a hold of something special. I shouldn't say being special. The concept that we developed of like how we view the Christ in you know as an avatar in the Western sense, where he was someone special, like, you know, he got that idea, or that got attached to him from the Hellenic Greek, like son of the gods concept. Um, but I think, I mean, one could argue and get into Gnosticism and everything about whether or not it was originally true of Christ, but it was certainly true of Buddha, that the whole idea was always, no, there's nothing special about this person. This was not somebody who was born, maybe born with a proclivity, maybe born with some talents that helped, but not, this person can do this because they are someone special, because they are the Son of God, because they are the chosen one. In fact, there are numerous writings in which both Jesus and Buddha and lots of other people that are in the same situation, not that there are lots of other people in the same situation, but there are plenty of cases where those people write, you know, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could do all that I can do. Stop following me and do what I'm doing. This is not magic. This is psychology. This is a frame of mind. This is something people can do. Anyway, I was fascinated with that many years ago when I had a really terrible experience. It wasn't some giant tragedy. I was at home. There were people in my house, not like, you know, big parties, a couple people there. Totally normal day. And I was sick. I was not deathly ill, but I was, you know, having a flu or something like that. And one of my relatives who was in medicine called me on the phone to see how I was doing, and I told them, and they told me, holy crap, there's this completely deadly thing going around. You know, you might have it, and you should do something about that. I hung up the phone, and I turned to my partner and made the usual human emotional plea for, be sympathetic with me, I'm scared, what should I do? And just due to circumstance, I got brushed off. And so I went down into the basement, and my chest was tight and my heart was thumping, and I had this icicle of fear that went all the way through my stomach. And I was just terrified. I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and no one will help me, and I feel completely alone. And so I sat on a bed, it was downstairs, with an Afghan next to me, a blanket, and I remembered a piece of advice that I had read in one of the things that I had been reading that said, you know, a response, like I'm trying to translate from Eastern again. The sage's response is what it said, but it's not terribly helpful. Like the more enlightened or the superior, or if you want to do this response to an overwhelming emotion is to go into it, you know, instead of backing away from it and turning away and blocking it out, which is what we instinctively do. You know, one could try going into it, and I'd never had any experience with that, and I was like, and I'm lost. I don't know what else to do. I'm just having an awful time. I'm, you know, crying and distraught, and I don't feel like I have anyone to comfort me, and I don't know, like, I was just too paralyzed with being afraid to think about what action to take. I think I was like, I think I was 21 at this time. And so I was not because of my age, but just for various reasons, I was not equipped to really do anything decisive with it. So I tried it. I sat there. I kind of got into what felt like a meditation worthy posture. I was just sitting and on a bed, and I closed my eyes and I sunk my attention into the part of me physically where I could feel that fear. And at first it was like trying to make yourself walk into a room that's at 600 degrees. Like physically, you just back right out of it. But because I didn't have any other options, I kept trying. And after about the third try, I just kind of broke through something or pushed through something, and I found my mind, instead of being up in my head where it usually was, my awareness, I should say, I found it in the middle of this ball of fear. And it was literally like pushing your way through a bubble that looked like dark and black from the outside. You push your way through and you go, oh my God, I'm in the middle of it. And you open your eyes and you look around and it's clear. It's just like it was a one-way mirror or something. Like I opened my eyes and my attention, I guess, and I looked around from the perspective of this fear in my gut, and the fear just evaporated. I mean, it was as though my gaze was some kind of amazing flashlight or something. Like I just looked around and it just dissipated. I mean, all at once. And what was left when that happened was the most amazing feeling. I mean, it was every typical mythological archetypal thing you can think about evaporating all of the negativity at once and being left with just perfect sunshine, green fields. Like I felt like I was in the middle of the most beautiful summer day with absolutely not a care in the world, not a single thought in my head, just ringing like awakeness. I was just like, all the channels were wide open. I was as completely relaxed and utterly content as it is possible for a person to be. And yeah, and this lasted for a few minutes. I I remember the Afghan that was on the bed with me. I mentioned this for a reason. Had been made for us uh, by my partner's mother, and I remember like I was just sitting there in this state of complete, total awareness. Like I wasn't meditating, I wasn't sleepy. My eyes were open. I was looking around, but I was so blissed out. I've never before or since been that blissed out. And I have done some amazingly bliss-inducing things in my life, but that was absolutely the top I have ever experienced. And I looked at this blanket, and it wasn't just a blanket. Like I could see it. I would say now that I could see it in 3D, like a whole different kind of 3D. Instead of being an object, just blah, it had on it and like woven into it as part of it its creation by a mother for her son and his partner. And and it was just like I looked at it, I was like, oh, like suddenly this is one of the most, it was beautiful. I mean, and I remember thinking at the time, I want to see everything this way. Like I want to see a tree and be able to see it as and actually, by the way, I did have an experience a couple years later, very brief in comparison, where I did see a tree that way. The thing that was most profound about it, by the way, is seeing a tree that way. It is as big underground as it is on the top. When you're standing at the base of it, you suddenly realize that you're not standing next to an object. You're standing kind of inside the embrace of this huge life form that, like, is all through the ground underneath you and all through the sky above you and is to some extent aware of you. Really, that was kind of awesome. That must have lasted like 5 seconds, and I remember it, and it was probably better than a decade ago, so that says something right there. But anyway, I mean that's a good wrap up. There really isn't anything more to that experience. I touched the blanket and I looked around for a while and I could feel it gradually bleeding away. And of course, like the most amazing dream in the world, I did not want it to go away, but it was like, holding concentration on a pink elephant. You just can't. I couldn't sustain it. It was a one-off thing. it's beginner's luck. I had accidentally slipped completely into this state, and just that was amazing. And I could see if you could go through life, um, even being in that state half the time, or being able to get there with some concentration, or if you could do that, you would be, yeah, no, Christ, Buddha, that would be fucking amazing to just be in the presence of somebody who is like that. There is no character in story or movie or anything that I know of. There's just like that would make you, it would instantly make you Gandalf. For one thing, I would, obviously, I want to get back there for many reasons, like, or forward there, but like, what would it be like to play baseball like that? Like that unbelievable sense of heightened awareness. Um, that you'd be freaking Gandalf. Like you can just do anything. Like reading like that, you could just kind of choose to absorb everything, and like, it was amazing with all the noise off, the psychology gone. To drag it into the current set of metaphors I've got, like all of that, just completely wide open and clear, complete access to all of your processing. I have no doubt that in that state I could have chosen what to remember and what to forget, what to think about, what feelings should be, allowed to exist, or just let go, not shoved down, not gotten rid of, but just like, if somebody made me angry like that, it'd be like, oh, there's an anger, like, there's an anger, all right, anyway, floating that away. Like, it's there's nothing to impede your direct access to the experience of being yourself at that point. And anyway, so that's probably one of the least historically relevant beautiful descriptions of a samadhi. You can read many others. Many people have described the experience of finding it. It's not actually terribly rare for people to have a samadhi through the course of their life. It's not, from what I understand, that uncommon for something to cause the psychology to just either completely run into itself and crash and just shut off, or be overwhelmed. Like, sometimes the window programs have become so compelling. One example that's often used of this is survival situations, which is probably why there is a high incident of people reporting survival type situations as being, not pleasant experiences, but unbelievable experiences of changing their state of mind and their method of focus. Like when you're clinging on the side of a mountain, sometimes it is such an extreme experience that your psychology cannot contribute, doesn't have anything to add, and furthermore, your lizard brain, the part which is when it needs to be the most powerful, knows that to indulge in any of those programs that aren't absolutely needed right now at this moment could kill you. So it just shuts everything off, and suddenly you have nothing but the being experience. You have nothing but the window stuff that's running. Your senses are on full. Your mind is only thinking to the extent that it needs to think right now. All of the other crap is just off. And that's really what this is about. Switching that axis from 2D, where it's a big, long line of past and future programs that are all still either pre-running in the future or echoing in the past, and not having anything relevant to do with right now, to this point where you're this line. This is the depth. This is now. It's moving like this in a linear way, but everything running is something relevant to right now. That's what the point of this is. And it would be a little scary of me, I think, to be willing to mess with my head as far as I have even had to so far, to try to be able to be in that state of mind at will, I guess, if it didn't feel good, if I didn't know that it was something worth doing. But yeah, I've really, honestly, fully been there once. I've had brief glimpses of it a couple times since then, probably numerous times since then. The glimpses of it that I have gotten in the weeks since I recently started doing it have been nothing in comparison to that first experience. But that's like saying, I once got on a bike and somehow magically kept my balance and went screaming all the way down a mountain, and it was just, wow, the wind, and oh my God, I'm flying. And now I'm trying to learn a bike. and I can occasionally balance it for a pedal or two, you know, and I can't really steer yet. Like it's that sort of feeling. I know it's the same thing. It's just that I can go eat, eat. And compared to that first experience of just getting stuck on a bike and pushed and going all the way down a mountain and having this ridiculous like heart thumping, mind changing experience is pretty pale. And it's hard to keep doing the work. I mean, my knees are getting scraped in the psychological sense, and it's not terribly fun to be practicing this every day sometimes, but I know that it's working, and I know where I'm going, and it is that knowledge that it's there and it's possible that is keeping me at it. Anyway, so I think that's about the relevant parts for today, and I will catch up with another one hopefully sooner rather than later. In fact, if we get buried in snow, probably sooner, because I'm not going to have a whole lot else to do. not that you guys are not important. I really appreciate everybody being out there. The internet remains one of my favorite places, so thank you all for continuing to be in it, and have a great day.